Pagoo Chapter 20. Endless Rhythm of an Old Sea. We left poor Pagoo in the arms of the octopus. Pagoo did not travel on the underslung conveyor belt. This time the witch of Deep Hole crooked her arm and pointed his shell toward her mouth like a spoonful of dessert. He was the dessert! Then something streaked through the water. Sharp jaws clipped the tentacle as if cutting a length of hose. The tentacle thrashed into the mud all by itself as though it were a separate animal. The tip gripping Pagoo's shell opened up and the shell dropped, and Pagoo again could see. He saw the moray eel who had cut the tentacle, making another swift charge. But where was the octopus? She had jet-propelled herself to the cave like a flying missile. The moray overtook her, and then... Pagoo was puzzled, because a great black cloud came boiling out of the cave. The witch had emptied her ink sac. She had squirted ink for a smoke screen, her last resort in time of trouble. And the witch was in trouble. At the cave door, a second tentacle wreathed like a snake. So the moray had found and clipped her again. But no more. The eel knew where the cave opened. He had seen her shoot into it, yet he blundered past as though he knew nothing at all. The ink not only clouded his eyesight, it seemed to spoil his sense of smell as well. He dashed about, lashing himself in aimless circles, mouth open. By chance his jaw slashed into the tentacles, still flopping near the cave. That was his favorite food. He tore at it. The moray would not catch the octopus again. Far back in her cave, in a narrow crack, she wiggled and squeezed and pressed her boneless body. Here she could hide until the stumps of her two lost tentacles healed and grew out again. For that is the way of witches and magic wands. At least, this is the way of witch octopuses and tentacles. Pagoo was free. He scuttled to the cliff, clambered up the sheer face of it without stopping. He made Muscle Ridge and Snail Cousin's Rock, dropped off a ledge and into an old anemone, crawled out and found his grotto of eating trees. Pagoo remained hidden and strangely quiet for a whole half hour. Once again he escaped the jaws of death, but he soon forgot all about that. He did not mean much. After all, death hangs around every corner of all tide pool towns. Its jaws are forever open. So you're still kicking, grunted Old Instinct. It's only luck you did not escape by yourself. You learned nothing new unless 'tis a fear of octopus. But shucks, that was learned by your great-grandfathers generations back and passed on to me for you. Not my fault you muffed it. Well, we'll put down Pagoo's escape from which nothing much learned. But say, while you're in this grotto, notice the new shells rolled in by that storm? When morning washed over the rocks, its sparkling foam and fresh food from the deep were delivered to every door. Pagoo, in a bright new shell, went walking in Tidepool Town. He broke through golden chains in the sea, let down by the sun, and he somehow seemed to be laughing at all chains. He ducked in and out to let Big Head go banging along the ceiling, and thought nothing of it. He found a most delightful scrap with a pair of bruisers, licked them both, and stopped to chop meat for a little fish around the corner. The landlady edged her traveling towers up to the feed, and he let everyone dine free. Her look said, "My, what a smooth young chap. Now I wonder who." But Pagoo sat in his new shell, bowing and cleaning his feelers. "Maybe," said Old Instinct, "maybe. Pagoo, you'll grow all the way up and have children and... Duck, son, here's Big Head again." Old Instinct was right. Pagoo did grow up, and he did have children, though he never quite knew how he heard an ancient call. Now's the time for new life to begin. Find yourself a mate. Find a mate. He'd much rather sleep. But then he saw her. There was little enough to see merely the dainty tips of her feelers waving from his shell, but to Pagoo they were the loveliest feelers in all Tidepool Town. He raced to her house and peered inside. Way back in her pearly chamber, her eyes glowing softly, Pagoo hammered her shell and seemed to yelp, "Come out here! Come out!" She would not budge. A crowd of the biggest boys rushed Pagoo. Each felt that this young lady hermit had waved at him and produced fits to prove it. Pagoo licked them all, but they kept coming back beside him. The crowd stole her away. He yanked her back. Pagoo held to her house the longest. For 3 days and nights they became acquainted, gently patting each other. When one morning she molted and kicked her old crust out of the door, Pagoo brushed against her new skin near the region of her heart. He had left her with countless seeds of life, seeds too small for even a hermit to see. They clung to the outside of her body, while within her lay hundreds of tiny eggs. Every egg held its own kind of built-in seed. Now each egg seed must be found by one of Pagoo's seeds. On meeting, the two seeds would start building a new life, and that egg, a little Pagagoras, would begin to grow. "I'll watch over your mate," Old Instinct was saying. "She'll lay her eggs and hang their clusters along her body. She'll rock gently inside her shell, swishing bubbly seawater around to clear and air those eggs, and she'll make a wise mother, never fear. After many days, her children and yours will hatch out, and then..." A glossy Pagoo from an egg small as a pencil dot drifted on the ocean. He heard the silent voice of Old Pal saying, "You're hungry?" And sure enough he was. Once more a new Pagagoras, Pagoo, for short had found his place in the endless rocking rhythm of the sea. Pagoo.